Hello and welcome to DisrupTV. We're here today live talking together with my co-host, Cindy Zhou. She's the CMO of Level Access, former Constellation Analyst, CMO startup extraordinaire, and more importantly, she is here as our special guest and also co-host, given that Vala Afshar is away today for this live show. This is episode number 162, and we're very excited. We've got some special guests here. And these special guests are going to be talking about anything from new business strategy to what's actually happening in the field, and of course, what's happening in the real world from a marketing perspective. I'm Wang, co-host of the show and the CEO and founder of Constellation. So let's start with our first guests. Our first guests are professors and authors, Nicolaj Siggelkow and Christian Terwiesch. They are both, well, they're professors in the management department in the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and a former department chair. Nicolaj is the David Knott Professor, and Christian is the Andrew M. Heller Professor in the Operations, Information, and Decision Department at the Wharton School, and also serves on the faculty of Penn's Perelman School of Medicine. So we're getting interconnected, interdisciplinary fields in one spot. They're the co-authors of this book that was published May 19th by Harvard Business Review Press called Connected Strategy. We're going to be going deeper into that, and they have won more than 50 teaching awards in their MBA and executive education programs at Wharton. They're also both co-directors of the world-famous Mac Institute for Innovation at Wharton, and they do these big MOOCs, massive open online courses in business on Coursera and edX, and even host a radio show on Wharton's Sirius XM channel. If you've never heard that, it's an amazing channel with lots of insights, and the research has also appeared in Management Science, the Strategic Management Journal, Administrative Science Quarterly, and the New England Journal of Medicine. They've also consulted for more than 100 different organizations, from small startups to Fortune 500 companies. You can follow them on Twitter at NICSIGGEIELKOW and TERWIESCH. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you.
What an introduction. I like the show.
I'm trying. It's not Sirius XM, but it's good enough. No, but we are coast to coast now across the country on different radio stations. So yeah, so let's start.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, first of all, I just want to say what an honor it is to have you both on the show, and particularly congratulations on the book too. I personally can't wait for our audience to learn more about it. And so first of all, Nicolaj and Christian, tell us about the process of writing the book. What was the really big problem you were trying to address with this book, Connected Strategy?
So he's handing it over to me because it's one of the tough questions here. So Nicolaj and I started, of all places, we started 22 years ago. We started together here as Wharton faculty, he in the strategy team, and as an operations person. And as you mentioned in your introduction, Ray, we've been working on the Mac Institute, looking at technology, looking at innovation. And one theme that we found kind of bubbling up in really a number of industries is that technology changes the way that customers and firms interact, right? So if you think about the old days, customer would come to the firm would do a good job serving the customer with a product or a service, and then they would part ways. In the healthcare setting, for example, a patient gets sick, goes to the doctor or the patient is in the hospital, doctors and nurses do everything possible to take care of that patient, and then the patient leaves and they kind of are disconnected. And now through technology, if you think about wearables, if you think about sensors, if you think about face recognition or other things, it is possible to form connections between customer and firm that are basically continuous in nature, moving this what once was a one-time episode to a continuous data exchange. And that sets up enormous opportunities for rethinking customer relationships and serving customers better, and hopefully also reducing the fulfillment costs.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting, those digital feedback loops that are actually being created here. Yeah. And so how does the connectivity change the frequency and quality of interactions? Because in your book, right, you talk about the fact that in some businesses, you only talk to someone once, right? Maybe once a year on an order. That's very, very different as opposed to something that's super frequent. But frequency and quality of interactions, might impact the way you engage in customers and also create those feedback loops and those sensing signals in a connected strategy.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think that's kind of the big change in technology, right? That we are now able to have this more continuous relationship where we're getting this information from our customers so we can not just wait for the customer to come to us, but potentially anticipate the needs that the customer might have, and maybe anticipate the needs even before the customer is aware of that need, right? So coming back to the healthcare example, quite often people are not aware of their needs, right? If I'm lying down on the floor with a heart attack, that is a bad time to become aware of my need, right? Of needing.
But that's a big demand signal, though.
And that is exactly how the system is currently working, and that's clearly very inefficient, right? And so that again, so Christian just mentioned that briefly, I think is one thing that really made us excited about these connected strategies, that it might actually allow us to create better customer experiences or better patient experiences while at the same time reducing cost, right? So not am I as a patient better off if I don't have a heart attack, but our whole healthcare system is better off if I don't have a heart attack, right? And so kind of it's that dual purpose of connected strategies that's, I think, quite exciting, but at the same time also quite disruptive to industries.
Absolutely. So since we're talking about that, can you help our audience understand exactly what is connected strategy?
Sure. So it's kind of fundamentally reshaping the way a firm is interacting with their customers, right? Sort of from few episodic interactions to having a much more continuous relationship where in part we are reducing the frictions so that it's much easier for you to connect with me or to interact with me as a company, while at the same time us being able kind of to what we would call go further back potentially in the customer journey that you have with us, right? So we're not just waiting for you to come to us with a particular need, but I can maybe help you become aware of your need. I might be able to help you understand what all the options are out there for you to fulfill that particular need, to decide what is the best option, make it easier for you to order it, make it easier for you to get it. But all of those elements, we can now kind of hopefully reduce the frictions in kind of for you to have a better experience with me as a company.
And we really see
this
in a number of industries, right? I mean, I gave you the healthcare example earlier on, where now in the days of the Apple Watch or other wearables or kind of sensor devices, medical devices, we are basically feeding the healthcare system data all the time. You see it in insurances where either our mobile devices or potentially even our cars are connected to the insurance, improving underwriting decisions. You see it in banking. You see it in sports products. If you think about the Nike Smart running shoe again, you hear lots of companies using the word connected as a buzzword to signal the next big change in how they interact with customers.
This is interesting, right? I mean, we're talking about these data-driven digital strategies, right? These data-driven networks are basically creating the sensing signals to actually come up and then help create, signals or input without actually you having to do anything, right? It's all ambient, it's all sitting in the background. So this is very, very interesting. So are there specific design points for building these types of feedback loops in a connected strategy? Does it change in types of industries or change in types of different business models?
Well, so you're talking about these feedback loops, right? And I think that those are very, very important and actually quite difficult, right? So it is one thing to say, well, I'm collecting all of this data. So the next step is, though, what to do with that data, right? And I think a lot of companies are currently stuck at exactly that point because the cost of data collection has come down a lot.
Yep.
We have all these sensors and all of that. So I can now know any click you've ever done on my website. But then what, right? So now I have all of this data. How does this actually help me to create a better relationship, right? And so this is, I think, where some really in-depth understanding of the pain points and sort of the value drivers of customers becomes very important. So we actually know what kind of data helps us now to really improve the experience that you have with me. And how do I do this continuously over time so I actually have a feedback loop, the way you describe it.
So I'm drowning in data, yet I have no insights, and I don't know what the next best action is, right? That's the situation where a lot of folks are in. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We think about that feedback loop that we've been talking about a couple of times now. It's a recognize, there's a request, respond, repeat, right? So at some point, either you, the customer, or I, as a firm serving, you have to recognize you have an unfulfilled need. You have to figure out what exactly is it that you're asking so that I can form this into a request. I have to provide you the request. I have to respond to you, recognize, request, respond. And then this is not a one-time thing. We have to do this over time continuously. That's where the repeat comes in.
But we also need context and attribution, right? I mean, the context then helps you to figure out what's next, right? Is it a location? Is it a time? Do I feel well? What's my heart rate, right? That might dictate what that next best action is. And then sometimes, right, choices come into play. right? You assign probabilities on the choices, and every time you choose one, it creates a feedback loop to say, oh, that 90% probability was actually wrong. It's actually 70%. Or let's try a wild card and do an A/B test just to see what might happen, right? I mean, this is getting very, very complicated.
Well, that's at the heart of the repeat loop, is really being smart about tracking the customer over time. And then let's not kid ourselves. I mean, we all have been to the doctor's office and have filled out a survey that we go like, I filled out this stupid questionnaire about allergies like a billion times before. So already recognizing it is you, Ray, that's already a first step. But as you say, it's not just about recognizing you. You mentioned a very important thing, that is the context. You as a business traveler is different from you as a traveler with your family. And so there's a context piece to that. And so as you think about repeat, as we try to be smart about serving a customer, as we try to be smart about customizing, we have to learn about these things. And again, as you mentioned, A/B testing and predictive analytics play a huge part of it.
Yeah, and let me just bring up something real quick too. I could not agree more with what both of you are talking about with understanding the customer more. I think that is definitely something that's sorely lacking in a lot of businesses. Everyone is saying we're customer centric, but in reality, it is still a handoff process from department to department, and there is a lot of friction in the middle of that. But something that you brought up is very interesting. You know, you talk about IoT, you talk about the connected devices and all these good things. What about the element of privacy? That is such a huge component right now, right? Customers want convenience. They want that frictionless experience. But on the other hand, they're like, don't touch my data. I don't want you to know that much about me. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, and I think that's where it becomes, again, very, very important to understand the particular pain points that we want to solve, because then we can ask the customer for a particular piece of data that will help us solve that particular pain point, rather than just let me collect all the data that I can, and then I have no idea what to do with it. And well, I guess I might as well resell it to someone else, right? So, you know, I think the way this will work in the longer run is we need to build up that trust, right, between me, the company, and you, the consumer. And the way this will probably work is that you give me a certain set of information, and I will really show you how to make your life better, right? And once you have seen, wow, I've given you this piece of information, right? Amazon, you asked me for my credit card information and I gave it to you. And in response, you gave me a button that I can click, and with one click, I'm done. So, oh, wow, actually that made my life better. Okay, I see kind of that value proposition. I give you some of my data, you made my life better. Okay, what more data do you want, right? And I think that is kind of the process eventually, you know, companies will have to go through, kind of to justify, why am I asking you this data? And can I really show the value back to the customer or the patient or whoever it is, right, that I really made their life better with that data.
Yeah. So you're saying if there's no value exchange, it's not going to happen. And people are willing to trade enough privacy for convenience, or privacy for level of security, or privacy for a value exchange, that, you know, privacy for status in some cases.
Yeah, and there's enormous value to be captured here, right? Because once you are in that relationship, that through iteration, you have formed the trust, you have earned the trust as a firm, the consumer will open up and let you deal with much broader and bigger problems of their life. You're no longer just selling a running shoe, you're selling me health and athletics, right? You're no longer just providing me a dental appointment, you're taking care of my oral health, right? I'm entrusting you with a much bigger problem, and at that level, you don't have to compete for every transaction, and you can do a much better job of serving me in the smartest way, as opposed to in just the way that I'm asking you to serve me right now.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So do customers care? Do they even recognize that this is happening to them? Do they even ask for this? Or is it more like the companies that are selling, you know, the brands and the enterprises are pushing this?
I think they absolutely do, right? And I think, you know, call it to a certain extent the Amazon or the Netflix effect, right? Kind of all of a sudden, right, these companies learn more and more about me, and they're starting to custom tailor their experience to me. And all of a sudden my expectation is rising that, well, shouldn't everyone treat me that way, right? When I'm checking into a hotel, why don't they know I have been here? When I check into my doctor's office, you know, why is it that Amazon and Apple knows more about me than my healthcare provider? Why, that doesn't seem to be right, right? When our students come to Wharton, right, and saying, okay, you know, what is my individualized learning experience going to look like, right? I mean, that's the expectation. And so, you know, I think customers very much realize that is kind of the way it's going. And I think that's the challenge that all organizations, I think, are currently facing, kind of how to keep up with those rising expectations about more individualized, less frictionless interactions with organizations and companies.
This is so fascinating to me because I deal a lot with, on the marketer side, this kind of privacy component. And it is true. It's the tell me what's in it for me. I think that is sorely missing. And today, it's the companies just collecting data almost for the sake of collecting data. But if you really outline for the customer, saying this is what the data will be used for and here's how it's going to help you, I think that is definitely the missing gap. But you both know this too. For companies to invest in this, there has to be an ROI or a revenue model where they can actually tie this back to benefit to the company. What would be your advice on, have you explored like a revenue model for this to kind of help companies crystallize this and actionize on it?
So the first thing is indeed, as you say, we're creating value here, right? Because we're shifting the curve, we're creating more willingness to pay, and we're potentially lowering the fulfillment cost. The fulfillment cost is the first part where we as a firm potentially can cash in and get an ROI. If it costs us less to serve you, there's money at the table. However, I like your question, and that's why we have dedicated an entire chapter to that question in our strategies, is a revenue story, right? What is the revenue model? If you think about most products or services, we are on a basic transaction basis. There's a sticker price. I sell you a toothbrush, I sell you a car, and that's the deal, right? And on that, you're competing against other, and it doesn't offer a lot of opportunity for customizing and segmentation. If you think about that product more as a service, which has been a big trend in many industries for the last 10, 15 years, product as a service is more of a subscription model. You can get into other ways of pricing where you start pricing by use, you price by performance, you price by location. Now that you are connected, you can, and I'm not saying this was a negative intent here, you can price discriminate so much better that it is in the interest of both the customer as well as for the firm.
That's crazy. I mean, we're going to find different levels of inelasticity in pricing because of this, right? And to me, that's actually very interesting. Is that one of the reasons why this connected strategy is fundamentally more different than the traditional relationship between customers and companies?
Well, I'm not quite sure whether it's fundamentally different, right? I think whenever you had better information about a customer, you can custom tailor things, including pricing. But I think what new technologies allow us to do is, for instance, to have much more microtransactions, right? If I had to send you a check, for every mile that I run on my Nike shoes, right? That would be not a very efficient way of interacting.
Hey, pay for use.
But now I can do it, right? Now I can do it because I don't have to send you a check anymore, right?
A subscription model.
Because I'm now connected
kilometers traveled.
My cell phone, and my cell phone has my credit card on it, and I can send you 5 cents every time I use it, right? So indeed, I think these technological improvements have now opened up a wider array of revenue models that previously were possible.
It's amazing. We're getting to unit cost billing, unit cost pricing, price per use, pay per use, right? All because data is actually being shared and reshared, and people are learning from that. You can actually predict demand and predict what's happening on the supply side. Wow. So if you're listening in, we are here with Nicolaj Siggelkow and Christian Terwiesch, professors and authors at the University of Pennsylvania. We're talking about their new book, Connected Strategy, something you can pick up, published by the Harvard Business Review Press. And more importantly, you can follow them on Twitter at NICSIGGELKOW and TERWIESCH. Thanks a lot for being on the show. Thanks a lot for sharing for your insights.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.
Can I send you a copy of the book for you both to sign, because I'd love to add you to my bookshelf here.
Yes,
it would be an honor.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
awesome
you.
brains, awesome folks. And we're going to move on to our next guest. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Definitely a very interesting strategy, especially in our digital world. And Cindy, I mean, can you imagine these marketing implications here, especially for like chief digital officers?
Oh my goodness.
Our next guest.
No, he gave me some inspiration on that for just actionalizing it in company. So it was a fantastic interview.
All right. Well, our next guest probably doesn't need an introduction, but it's Shawn Mandel, the chief digital
One of our
technology
faves.
from Cineplex. Shawn joined Cineplex in 2019 as the company's chief digital and technology officer, one of the country's most respected tech executives. He's talking about Canada, but he's one of North America's most respected tech executives. He's been sharing a lot of experiences in terms of building agile teams, doing digital transformation on the ground. I've even been to his labs at his previous company and building a corporate culture and guest experience unparalleled to others. In this role, he's driving the company's digital strategies, the IT strategies, building innovation across its entire ecosystem and business. And more importantly, he's been there to make sure that more than 70 million Canadians who visit Cineplex, and Americans too, every year enjoy unparalleled entertainment experiences supported through the use of the latest technology. So Shawn was previous at TELUS, where he was the company's chief digital officer, and also he's got a lot of very interesting accomplishments. I'm going to leave those for other people to read. But more importantly, he's on the Digital Transformation Committee of the Board of Directors for TO Live and volunteers this time as a mentor at Techstars Toronto Accelerated, which if you haven't been to, you've got to go. That is like one of the hubs for startup innovation in Canada. You can follow him at Shawn Mandel, ShawnMandel09. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Great to see you, Ray. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Shawn, you're definitely one of our favorite guests, and what a transformational CDO you've been. So this is a big move. You were at TELUS for a long time. So you got to tell us about the new role. You know, why did you make the change? What are you hoping to accomplish? We want to learn more.
Yeah, listen, hey, you know, I spent 11 amazing years at TELUS, and I have spent quite a long time in the telecommunications industry. And as you guys know, that industry offers so many different opportunities, right? They're heavily into digital, they're big ICT communications companies. Some of these companies own healthcare businesses, own, you know, content companies, and just the wealth of experience you get from working inside of that environment has done very well for me. But at sometimes you kind of get itching for a change. And I got a great opportunity thrown at me. I work in a 100-year-old theater business who is aggressively trying to diversify itself. And it's kind of quite rare. You get handed an opportunity to lead a transformation of such an iconic Canadian brand that has such great brand resonance and such familiarity with the population. And when you start to unpack the various industries that we play in when it comes to media, we're bringing Top Golf to Canada. We're in the business.
Top Golf? That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Biggest theater company in the country. You just start to get the reality that, you know, it's very rare that a company crosses 7 or 8 different industries. We're like one of Canada's largest food and beverage companies. So when you start to stack it all up, it's kind of, you know, a very rare opportunity that I couldn't let pass me.
Wow, that is just exciting. Hey, you were last on the show in August 18th, and congratulations on also being on our Business Transformation 150 list of top business transformation executives. So look, you're like not a first-time chief digital officer. You've been through this rodeo. You know exactly what the challenges are. You know, can you share like lessons learned and best practices that you're bringing with you? Because a lot of folks at first, right, you know, they don't know what it means, a chief digital officer, let alone their organizations aren't even ready for a chief digital officer. Tell me about what's going on with you.
Yeah, listen, it's an interesting experience, right? I just spent the last, you know, good 7 years or so climbing Mount Everest about 17 times, and now I'm back at base camp, right? So, you know, I'm in the store, I'm buying my backpack, and I'm getting my team ready to go for a climb. And so, as you know, Ray and Cindy, that's quite a complicated task and has lots of layers of different types of complexity to it. You know,
the D-clips are not enough.
No, not at all. You need a lot more than that. And the simple reality is you can't re-engineer the technology and the digital capabilities of any business without very much spending a lot of time understanding vision, mission, and outcomes. You know, looking at, you know, the customer journey, looking at culture, talent, ways of working. So I'll spare you all the details, guys, but I got about a 20-pronged transformation plan that I'm executing one day at a time. And the reality is culture and behavioral change at scale, we're 13,500 people, takes time. So you can only kind of push so much change at once, and you need to be mindful that, you know, it's a crawl, walk, run type exercise. And yes, you want to do things and get mature and advanced, but sometimes you got to focus on like that food, shelter, water, and doing the basics brilliantly before you kind of earn the right to do more sophisticated things.
No, that's a very humble approach, and you're right. A lot of times, some people only want to do one climb. Other people are in it for multiple climbs, and I think people are going to learn that along the way. Or even why are we climbing? So good point.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of movies, so I've been working on my movie analogies, and I was watching a movie the other day. It was great, and this great quote really resonated with me in the sense that, you know, it's not about the destination, it's about the lessons you learn and the people you meet along the way, right? And for us, like, there's no such thing as done. There's this just perpetual state of change. And I think that's what I think going through this process before has really lended to me well as we approach the journey ahead.
Yeah, Shawn, for sure. You are a change agent. You know, this is something where you bring a new energy and a strategy to the company. Let's talk a little about the role of the Chief Digital Officer. You know, there's been hey, this is sort of a new title, new function, to now I do feel like the role has started to mature and people are starting to understand it more. But can you talk about that evolution? And, you know, what do you think are the most key important elements to this job?
Yeah, and I think the answer to that, and obviously the scope of the role, depends on the company, the industry, and the context of any organization. What I'm observing and what I'm seeing in terms of trends is the product officer, digital officer, data officer, CIO, CTO are very much blending. And it's kind of weird for me maybe to say this, and you know, don't hold it too much against me because I'm still thinking through this statement, is that I actually might think the CDO idea goes away over time. Oh, yeah. And it becomes far more CTIO type focused, and our chief technical and information officers need to become far more digitally oriented. So I might believe that like the CDO moniker is a bit of a fad that might pass us in the next 5 or 10 years as companies cycle through this pace of change that we're going through right now. And so, but we're seeing multiple disciplines colliding. So the scope of my role as designed is quite comprehensive. So we're looking at data, we're looking at product, we're looking at digital, and we're also running like core IT. And so we believe the combination of those capabilities together essentially gives us the keys to the car to actually drive meaningful change versus creating too many dependencies on other parts of the organization.
What about marketing, Shawn? How closely do you collaborate with marketing, particularly the industry that Cineplex is in? You know, how closely is that relation? How close is that relationship?
Yeah, and we've always talked traditionally where like the CDO or that digital role sits very much between marketing and IT, right? And they're kind of northbound into marketing, southbound into IT. I think in the way we've constructed the role over here, we're very much creating the capabilities to allow marketing to activate the outcomes that they want to deliver. So our partnership with marketing is extremely close. And again, it's early days. I've been in the role for 4 months. But if I fast forward the record based on the experiences I've had in the past, the goal is to create this like blended type team environment. This isn't about digital versus marketing versus product versus IT.
Yeah.
It's about like one team with one dream. And creating integrated teams or integrated squads, depending on the vernacular you might use internally, that are chasing common outcomes. So I don't really care what department you're in. We all kind of work for the customer, if you know what I mean.
Oh, music to my ears. I'm nodding my head big time. I want to say like almost about 10 years ago, I think it was about 10 years ago, Esteban Kolsky and I were on stage in Italy, and we were given this task to talk about the CIO versus the CMO. And we coined this term around the chief digital officer, but we also pointed out in 10 years that the CDO role might go away, right? Like finance folks would become digitally enabled, thinking about business models. Marketing folks would get more oriented around technology. CIO folks would get more oriented on design and thinking. And we're starting to see that convergence. So it's awesome to hear you talk about that. So,
you sort of want to manage yourself to a relevancy, right, Ray? Like there's a lot of digital natives or companies that have evolved to digital that don't necessarily have a CDO. And to be honest with you,
right.
Shouldn't, because as you raise the acumen of the organization, everybody should have these skills. So what we're trying to do is distribute these skills as broadly in the company as we can. We might need to bring them together first to kind of incubate them before we push them to the edges of every part of the company. But that's really the objective, is to not necessarily need to exist.
Yeah, no, this digital proficiency is kind of cool. So, and I think everyone's got to start picking up some of that skill sets, whether it's digital technologies, data skills. But speaking about exponential technologies, let's say I walk into Toronto after dark, show up at the Scotiabank flagship theater that might go away. I hope it's going to stick around. Get my IMAX thing, right? What new exponential technologies are you most excited about? Like, what's going to change with movie going? Like, are we going to see like AR, VR headsets with the movie at the same time? Like, how does IoT, 5G, AI, all these other kind of cool technologies change that experience from just thinking about seeing a movie to actually leaving that theater and coming back again?
Have you ever been to a D-Box experience, Ray, where you actually sat down and kind of in this chair and you kind of have the water hitting you, the chair is shaking, and you're very much immersed in the experience?
It's awesome. The wind flies in, the scents come in. I mean, that is amazing. And all in your haptics. Imagine the haptics on the bodysuit.
They have these 440x or these 270-degree screens when you see Aquaman, and kind of basically the entire movie like morphs along the entire side of you. So what you're seeing is a lot more immersive and connected experiences, and you're seeing a lot more investment in augmented and virtual reality. So we have a stake in a virtual reality company, and there are some investments to understand what the blend between physical and digital starts to look like in the traditional sense. But as you overlay augmented and virtual reality, you know, the opportunities are still undetermined yet, Ray. But as you mentioned, all these IoT, all this stuff around machine learning, all of those things are very much permeating the industry. I'd say the industry is a bit behind some others, which gives us a great opportunity to, you know, learn from a bunch of mistakes others have made when it's come to embracing more modern technology and how it pushes our industry and the guest experience forward.
Well, it's like I'm thinking like maybe I'll have Cineplex at home, right? I get the haptic suit, I get the whole Oculus, right? I'm sitting there. It's a live showing, like when you do launch, everyone's all part of it, right? You know, I mean, there's more like live events. I'm like, maybe there's like e-games and e-sports that pick up, you know, because you can take the brand further with those type of experiences. So I know you probably can't say too much, so I'm just saying.
No, I don't mind at all.
Speaking.
Hang on, right? And what we've done with our set of assets is very interesting and unique compared to others. So we own a concept in Canada called the Rec Room. We own a Top Golf facilities that we're starting to bring to the country. We obviously have the in-theater experience. You're starting to see this kind of blended journey across all of these assets. We also sit on something called Scene, and we're a joint venture in the Scene loyalty program, which just crossed the 10 million member mark. So when you think about the data, you think about the play around loyalty and how to integrate all of these pieces together. You know, that's the riddle of the day, Ray. And you know, we're figuring it more out every day, and the outcomes are becoming clearer. The path to that outcome is still a bit fuzzy.
Well, I'm saying that only because you have all those cool arcades and entertainment facilities. I mean, that's pretty wild, right? I mean, and you guys have been putting like these Dolby Atmos, Ultra AVX auditoriums everywhere. So that to me is kind of pretty wild. So.
Yeah, well, so much change, right? And so much cool innovation, all the stuff that you look like you have great ideas. Shawn, but how does that change business models? Are you looking at subscription type services now, or tell us, I don't know if you can share any, but if you can, share some of that with us. What kind of new business models are you looking at to go in conjunction?
Yeah, it's been historically a very transactional based type business. When you think about even what we do with the Cineplex store, which is very akin to an Apple store or Google store to buy content, it's all very TVOD transactional oriented. And yes, everybody's looking at this shift towards what is like a monthly reoccurring charge type business look like. And so it's no secret that this is quite popular with some of the theater goers in the US and in the UK and across Europe. And it's something that we're looking at in terms of like, does this make sense as a value proposition to take to market from a guest experience, from an economics perspective? So yeah, like there is going to be some innovation in the business model, but for us, we're sitting on a boatload of opportunity to really start doing some of the basics in a very brilliant way. It's really starting to extract value out of a bunch of existing businesses that are ripe of opportunity. So we're trying to balance this, you know, the fun stuff that Ray describes with also some of the basics that we need to focus on. So I think that's the big challenge, is how much do you drive to be innovative versus how much do you focus on doing the basics right? And that's the constant balance we're going to have to deal with over the next little while.
Yeah, so you got to work on the new ERP or POS system. No, just kidding.
No, you do the membership subscriptions, or
No, but it is the basics, right? There's blocking and tackling that people have to do. Like POS integration is a nightmare wherever you go, right? And then getting customer loyalty is also basic blocking and tackling that everyone typically has to jump into, which isn't easy. So, but you guys also run an extensive, like, you know, restaurant business too. People forget that, right? You got outtakes, yo-yos, and a whole bunch of other stuff going on as well. So, and those things are like there's X Scene, right? It's almost like the big entertainment place where people just hang out and play arcades and amusements and other things.
And that's the Rec Room. We just launched a
the Rec Room
called the Palladium. You know, and the asset mix is quite interesting when you look at what we do around a company that we own called Player One Amusement Group and all the arcade gaming that happens.
Xscape, that's what it was.
You got it, right? And so again, like that's part of the interesting challenge and why it's so such a great opportunity is because, as you can imagine, the architecture of how all these pieces fit together, when I think and put my traditional IT hat on, is a very interesting conundrum, Ray, as you can imagine.
So let's switch gears a little, right? Congratulations, Cineplex sounds like it's gonna be awesome. Sounds like you're going to be there for another 10 years, like pioneering, forging through, Mount Everest and back. But let's talk about the tech scene and startup scene in Toronto. I mean, Toronto has become an AI capital. It's become a startup hub. I mean, the money's pouring in. Startup investors are coming all over the place. What's it really like? Because we're hearing all about, hey, got to come to Toronto, got to come to Toronto. What's the reality?
The reality is a lot of what you described. And so we spoke, I think even last time we were on the show, about the boom that is the AI community in the city. And I think the biggest change that we're seeing is the corporate money from the US that's coming to Toronto. And what we're also seeing is a bunch of really entrenched Canadian companies like Shopify making big investments in the city as well. So the billions of dollars of corporate money that are being poured in to engineering labs like Uber and Facebook, what Microsoft is doing, relocating their office downtown, obviously what's happening with the Googles and the Amazons of the world. So even though we didn't win HQ2, there's still a big Amazon investment that's happening in the city. So to be honest with you, it's polarized a bunch of people, right? Everybody's worried about Canadian IP, the brain drain to the US, and this idea of like the satellite office in Toronto. And it's also driving the rates for talent through the roof, because you've obviously seen some of the articles out there about, like, the loaded cost of a Canadian engineer in American dollars versus someone in Seattle, Boston, or San Francisco is like light years apart.
Take your pay in US dollars. Take your pay in US dollars. Exchange rates are great.
So it's only further exacerbating the talent issues that we face in the city, and the shortage of people when it comes to machine learning experts, cybersecurity experts. We don't have any different challenges than any big major US city, but it's quite acute considering the dollars that are being poured in. And what you're seeing, I think the city's about 6.5, 7 million people now. I think we're bigger than Chicago, Ray. And what's happening is that's only going to grow at a crazier pace over the next 20 to 30 years.
The brain drain is really coming from Waterloo. They're going east.
Absolutely, totally.
So. Yeah, I just had a great conversation with a Canadian company too, and talking about their fear on this brain drain, because it really is true. It's just they go across the border and the pay is on a different scale. So, but I think that will change.
Well, as you guys know, it's been a bit interesting for you guys down there over the last few years. So we've actually been seeing come the other way for obvious reasons, which hasn't been unhelpful at all for guys like me and the team who have been trying to hire great technical talent. Like my head of architecture in a former life came back from the Valley, and we're seeing conversations now with people that are coming back from the States who want to either come to Canada or come back home. And that's creating actually a pretty positive influx of talent. But that doesn't mean it's still not hyper competitive to land the right people.
Wow,
yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of talent, Shawn, you don't get to where you are without some great mentors, without some help along the way. Who are some of your mentors, and what are some learnings that you have that you can share with future CDOs that are watching or listening to the show today?
I had a great opportunity when I got into the telco about 20 years ago to spend time with some great industry veterans. I made some pretty smart, conscious decisions not to click with the younger crowd, but actually ran as fast as I could to the old school service design team, to the guys who built networks, and spent a lot of time really, doing everything I could like a sponge to extract as much learnings as I possibly could. And there were certain people along the way that stand out, whether it's a gentleman by the name of David Neal, who was very instrumental in my career, someone by the name of Joe Natale, who was quite instrumental in my career. So I've just had this great opportunity to be surrounded by either very brilliant technologists and innovators, or just great leaders and people who know how to breed other leaders, how to grow great talent, how to not necessarily give you the answer, but help you find out the answer for yourself. And I've just been really lucky. And some of that was me hunting for it, though. Like, it didn't come to me. I had to go after it and get it. And we spend a lot of time even talking to our teams about career opportunities and how, our job as leaders is to create an environment that enables your success. But I can't own your career for you. I can help. And so I think I'm a bit of a poster child for just going after it and being a connector and building those networks. But guys like Dave and Joe have been quite instrumental in my journey.
This is amazing. Well, hey,
awesome.
This is part of the learning, right? Really learning, how to find the right talent, how to learn from people from different generations, and especially there's a lot of corporate knowledge that often gets lost. Like, people don't look back to say, hey, what should we learn? So this is amazing. Hey, Shawn, thanks for sharing your insights. We're here with Shawn Mandel, Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Cineplex, but more importantly, one of the few people that have won the Business Transformation 150 Award twice in the inaugural 2018 and 2020. So we'll see you here in Half Moon Bay at the Ritz. So, all right, thanks a lot for being on the show. You can follow Shawn on Twitter at ShawnMandel09 for very interesting insights on what's happening in Toronto in terms of the startup world, and of course, Chief Digital Officer's musings and thinkings. So thanks a lot, Shawn.
Thanks, Ray. Cindy, have a
You're
great
such
day.
a pioneer, Shawn. Have fun at your new role. Love it.
See
Really
you.
love having you.
So, wow. Okay, so now I get to roast you.
Woo! I transitioned from guest. First of all, no one can replace Vala, so I'm really honored to be here in his place. And so I hope I do him justice. But yeah, no, this is fun. Now we get to gab a little bit.
We do. We've known each other for a long time. Cindy is the CMO of Level Access. This is a very, very important firm. It's really talking about digital accessibility solutions that are out there. And more importantly, you know, she drives the marketing, the inside sales, the sales enablement initiatives. She takes all the stuff that she learned from Constellation and way before that. Her coverage areas. She's got 18 years of experience really in corporate marketing, product management, and sales ops. And basically, she's done a lot of transformation in companies from back office to IBM to MTORS, Rivermine, two startups that got acquired, and MCI. So very, very exciting. So, so you can follow Cindy on Twitter at Cindy_ZHOU. But more importantly, I'm going to jump in and really talk about some of the things that are on your mind. You're last on our show on November 16th, so it's been a little bit of time. So tell us.
Whoa, has it really? Oh gosh, time flies.
Well, at least Aubrey tells us, and Aubrey keeps the show running. So
Aubrey does.
That's
Keeps us honest.
She keeps us honest. So look, what's happening on the B2B market for B2B marketers? What's shifted, right? Are we still like, is it all email marketing still, right? Have we moved on, right? What's going on? So.
You know, I gotta tell you, right, there's definitely a very big divide between theory and best practice and what you should be doing and really what you're seeing in reality. You know, change is not easy. Change is inherently, you know what you have to do. B2B marketing, we hear a lot about account-based marketing, right? I wrote a paper about account-based strategy. It is something that companies are now really embracing, but they're in varying stages. So I talked to a lot of different CMOs here in DC, Bay Area, et cetera, and everybody knows inherently, like, these are the things to focus on, you know, marketing KPIs and, you know, data and all of these things. But I got to tell you right now, the hottest thing that we're all struggling with is data privacy. That's why I brought it up with the two professors in the first segment. The issue really is we've got the California Consumer Privacy Act coming into play in January, GDPR, and marketing, particularly email marketing, anything digital, we have to be very, very careful about how we handle these requests and making sure there's great consent. And so even just speaking for myself as a CMO here at Level Access, that is something I partner very, very closely with our head of info security, and we have to get these things taken care of. So it is one of those things where it doesn't sound super exciting, but it's such a necessary topic. And I will be blogging about this very, very soon, where, you know, it's not very clear, right? It's a Consumer Privacy Act. How does it apply to B2B? You know, if your company that you work for is headquartered in, let's say, Portland in Oregon, but you are a person who happens to live in California, do I treat you differently than if you were a company headquartered in California and you were an employee living in California? So there's a lot of these little nuances that, you know, as we kind of develop as marketers, we're trying to figure out too. And so I think that there definitely is a very big need to kind of clarify this and some help and assistance for marketers in navigating this problem.
I know. I mean, it's every time a regulatory framework pops in, whether it's GDPR, now CCPA, I mean, these things are still getting in the way of doing real marketing. It's crazy. Right? You want to do real projects, and now they're stuck with another regulatory requirement from someone, and it's kind of ridiculous. But I understand the need for privacy. It's almost as if we need like a consent management system where people just say, look, I'm going to register my consent. Here's what I'm in on. And then, you know, if you meet any of these categories, fine, reach me. If you really want to reach me, pay me. If you don't want to reach me at all, right? Or if you don't want me ever not to do business with you, though, don't make me mad at you. I mean, something like that's got to happen. So.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the marketing automation vendors are getting really good at this too. I remember many of them I worked with at Constellation. They are building in a lot more processes for privacy and consent management. And I also love the ideas that both Nicolaj and Christian talked about in the first segment. You know, it is not just hey, let me get to a consent form and I get to check, email me once a week, email me once a month. It's what's in it for me. Stay subscribed, you get X, this is what you'll learn. I feel like that value articulation needs to get better. And so that's something that I'm going to take away and think about with my team and strategize on, how do we make this consent process better so that we can hold on to our subscribers and our customers, so that they want to continue to get our I don't want to even call it marketing. It's just great engagement campaigns and information that can help them.
Yeah, and the value exchange, right? That's the part you're talking about. Sometimes that value exchange is monetary. What's into it for me? Maybe I got a discount, maybe you can refer a friend. Sometimes it's non-monetary, right? It's like status, right? You get something, you get a favor done for you out of nowhere. And sometimes it's just, consensus. Let's agree on something. Let's go do something together, right? And I think people are forgetting 100%. That value exchange component everywhere. And that's kind of driving it. But let's switch a little bit, right? What's going on for the need for human touch? We're seeing this pop up again, right? All these digital things, digital channels. Yeah. And the highest open rate for any marketing campaign is the FedEx one.
that is so true. I gotta tell you, direct mail works.
Direct mail is still doing better than email marketing.
I'm telling you, we are inundated, we are bombarded. Really, marketers today, and also, I say this now coming from the practitioner side because it's always easier to say it than to actually do it. But your copy, it's got to matter in your digital campaigns. Your ads that you're running. You can't come at it from your perspective. Try to get a customer council together to help you at least review some of these things, give you ideas and thoughts. You can gamify it, make it really interesting for them to be a part of it. They get special access to different things at the company, but you got to get to the point where it's relevancy. It's sort of again, earlier going back to what's in it for me? Why should I care? Why do I need to continue to get your emails, right? But because there's so much digital and there's so many emails, retargeting ads, you name it, it's gotten to the point now where I pay attention when I get a box, and it's a very beautiful direct mailer, and and it works. So depending on the audience that you want to target, again, very much use an account-based strategy on this one. Go direct mail, but also in addition to that, there's a whole slew of technology now where it builds in sales cadences. These are the sales lofts, the outreaches of the world. And so from that perspective, you keep that human element and that human touch where it builds into cadences. So maybe today you're sending an email and tomorrow they suggest you call them at a certain time. There's these things where it's become a orchestrated experience. And I definitely say that is something that companies should definitely continue to look at too.
Well, we're seeing this, and I was joking about this in the past, but a few people have actually started to do this, right? I mean, look, this is B2B marketing. Like, it's not like you don't know who you're selling to, right? I mean, there's like 2,000 companies you're going after. There's only like 500 you're going to pay attention. Let's say there's 5, maybe 7 influencers on the deal. Do you not know who your 3,500 people are? Come on.
Yeah, Ray, you would think, right? Because so I'll challenge you on that one a little bit. So that is true. If you have a very well-defined TAM, the other part of the equation is you may know the customer, the accounts that you want to get into, but to find the people, finding information on how to reach them, that is a whole nother set of technology plus some human element. And also, let's face it here, majority of companies, I can tell you no one will raise their hand when you say, my CRM data on all my customers is clean. No one will raise their hand.
It's totally not clean.
Always stuff to think about. Yeah.
Look, if you got 3,500 target accounts and you got 50 reps, right? You're telling them, look, you got 700 accounts under management, right? Right? You basically have to go after those accounts. Right, but you should know who you're going after. I mean, this is like crazy.
For sure. That's why
once you track down their names,
very important.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to spend this much on this stuff. This drives me nuts. You could get a pre-fee dinner in Indianapolis at a Michelin star restaurant for $149, including wine.
Yeah, but you're missing one element. This is coming from,
I know.
I used to be in the procurement world. CPOs will say, you can't go to that dinner. You can't take any gifts above, $50, right? We have a lot of customers on that too. It's say, hey, I can't accept anything above a certain amount. So, but I'm with you. So that's what I mean. There is the inherently, what needs to happen, and then you run into a lot of roadblocks and challenges. And so really it's just getting focused. You got to just tackle these roadblocks one by one and knock them out. And then you can start to make a lot of progress. And so I definitely, tell other marketers too, don't feel like you need to boil the ocean right away. Take it a step at a time. Break it down into micro tasks. Get your team focused on one thing at a time, and then you can actually get a lot accomplished.
Now, you're one of the founding members of the Sales Enablement Society, and you've been spending a lot of time there in the past. What's working in theory? What's working in reality?
Yeah, so sales enablement, I'm so proud
very
of
different
this
than marketing.
And really
very different than marketing.
Very much so. And really, I really applaud Scott Santucci for getting, the 16 of us together, and now it's amazing. It's like 7,000 members on LinkedIn. The function of sales enablement has gone from, what is sales enablement? Is it training? Is it HR? Is it the recruiting side of the house? Is it product marketing? And many times, sort of the launches, the go to market. And now, my gosh, you can find a ton of job postings with sales enablement within the title.
That was a title that didn't exist like 8 years ago.
Did not. I wouldn't even say 8 years ago. I would say even going back 3 years ago. And now you see it more and more and more. And in some way, I do feel like the society has done just so much great work in promoting this concept and also this particular title. So what needs to work is that for it to work in sales, you have to have an owner. I will tell every company out there, you can't just say, well, I'm going to stick it in marketing. I'm going to stick it in. No, you have to have an owner for this and someone who drives it across different teams. And so I think every company can do this better. And I am by no means saying that we're perfect here on this one, but we're certainly making strides into that area. Because first, identify what are all the elements of it, right? You got to start from the onboarding, recruiting side, of sales enablement. How do you make sure they have a great onboarding experience? Then you got to go into, training, development. How do you make sure that you're building reps for success? And then it's the marketing enablement too. So you got to combine all of these elements together and give it an owner. Somebody owns it, soup to nuts, cross department.
Yeah, no, and this is part of the interesting challenge that everybody has, right? It's that onboarding piece. People think it's easy. I mean, onboarding sales? Oh my God, that's probably one of the hardest things a company can do. So, yeah,
particularly if you have a lot of products, a lot of segments, and some of these companies, you have to get them really, really focused. And that part is, it's a lot of information. I mean, all of us, it's hard to absorb that much at one time.
Well, let's jump into why you joined Level Access. I mean, really that issue around digital accessibility. Where are we in the state of digital accessibility? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, are we sitting at a 2, a 5, a 7 in terms of how well people made things accessible?
Yeah, I think that here's the challenge. And this is one of the reasons why I joined the company and I wanted to take this on, because it is very rare to have a company that blends great technology with great social purpose. And our company is at the forefront of creating experiences for our customers to serve their end customer, we're B2B, to ensure that they have an equal access and web technology experience, whether it's on your website, on your mobile app. We are so dependent on technology today. I can't imagine it just with my schedule. I don't have time to go out and shopping. I'm doing all e-commerce, right? And think about 20% of the population are people with disabilities. Then you layer on everyone from the aging population and how rapidly people are aging. We've got baby boomers now, et cetera. They have dexterity challenges, they have vision challenges. And so we really are here to make sure that we help these companies make their digital properties accessible. So, Ray, to answer your question on a scale of 1 to 10, kind of how broad is the awareness of this? It's still low. It depends. Certain industries, if you have to do this for compliance, they're definitely more aware of it, but it's still nebulous on what do I need to do. And I think that that's the challenge. there's a lot more lawsuits going on. But in addition to that, there's more conversation around diversity and inclusion. If companies come out and say, we want to be a company that cares about diversity and inclusion, and yet you don't make your internal HR systems, et cetera, accessible for applicants to apply, your employees to utilize, you are not accessible. You are not living those values. And so it's really, really interesting now. We're seeing more companies that are, still lawsuits drive a good amount of it, but now more and more so it's the, hey, we want to deliver not only great customer experiences, but employee experiences.
Wow. Hey, you got a great point here. Look, if you got a D&I initiative, diversity inclusion initiative, and you're not backing it up with accessibility, you're missing the point, right? I mean, this is what you're talking about. I mean, it's like, dude, you got to back it up. If you don't have this, how do people get it? How do people participate? You're like even not being inclusive. So, hey, you got
exactly
from Greece from Sotris, and hello from Andrew Nevis. He's like, human touch is critical.
Fantastic.
That should help us get back to the person. So, but you're going to be at CCE anyways. So, hey, I'm going to switch gears on you too again. What is going on with the startup scene in DC? You've been there for, there all your life. You're actually native, actually. So you're DC, right. Maryland, Virginia. I was at Dharma. What is it? DCMV. Yeah. DMV. You're a native. You're native.
DMV. Yeah, I am. I'm a Washingtonian, native girl here. No, I will say it's actually really, really exciting. Let's think about this, right? Amazon chose Arlington.
I know, I saw it. I saw it
right?
like this when Shawn was talking about
DC. In fact, we won it. So Arlington, Virginia, right? The HQ2, actually recently in the news, AWS just leased some two new buildings over in Herndon. They're building out here. There is a great website that I follow a lot called DC Inno. It's the media site, and they actually stated that in August alone, DC area companies attracted 172 million in funding. That's just 1 month.
172 million in funding is huge here.
Yeah. We are hot as can be. If you think about certain industries like cybersecurity, obviously a lot of good tech. There's also even some great consumer companies out here. Like right now, the Nitro cold brew is a huge thing, and I love it. There's a company called Commonwealth Joe, very hot company in this area too. Cybersecurity, Hawkeye 360. There's just Fiscal Notes is another one in the fintech space. There's so many great companies. Obviously, I consider us one of them. We were a DC Inno coolest company. 50 on fire, and we're doing really great stuff, not only in tech but in social.
You guys
one of those things where
some awards. You guys have been racking some awards. So,
we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Yeah, Red Herring Inc. 5,006 times. Cody Award for a finalist. We didn't win, but for best compliance. Yeah, so no, it's been really exciting time, especially for a marketer like me who's like, I just love this. It's too fun.
Any chance you'll come back to be an analyst? Everyone's yelling. Everyone's hanging me in the water cooler right now. It's like, when's Cindy coming back?
Oh, I gotta tell you, my heart. I have a portion of this that has never left Constellation, which is why you and I still chat all the time, and I want to, and I'm still part of the Orbits network, and that's why I want to blog about the CCPA and how does this kind of impact marketers too, and I'll make sure we get that on Constellation's blog. And so, Ray, I would say that, a part of me is always out there. I want to keep looking at the big picture and seeing what else is out there in the market, because not only do I think it helps me and my team, but it also helps so many other companies. And so I want to continue to do that. As long as I'm helpful, I will keep doing that.
Oh, no. This is amazing. So, all right. Well, Cindy, thank you for those insights. We're going to close out the show. But Cindy, you can follow Cindy Zhou. She is the CMO at Level Access, former Constellation analyst. And of course, you can follow her on Twitter at Cindy_ZHOU. We're going to have a very exciting show next week. Next week, we're actually on episode number 163. Now, check this, Cindy. You're going to love this. Manny Medina, CEO of Outreach. Guy Marion, CEO and co-founder of Brightback. And Nicole France, who's covering she's our VP and Principal Analyst covering these technologies.
Awesome, Nicole.
So Nicole will be on. So follow our recordings on iTunes, SoundCloud, Vimeo, YouTube, and on radio stations coast to coast. Can you believe we are actually coast to coast on these radio stations? And
I did not know that.
Yes, awesome. We are. I'll explain that to you later. One of the most interesting arbitrage plays I've seen on radio. It is amazing, and it allows you to actually create a coast to coast network video. So, all right, thanks everyone. Thanks for being on the show.